Welcome in to today's episode of Open Mic. We've got just an awesome guest here with us today. He's a master's student at the Missouri School of Journalism. He's one of my best friends, so really great to just have him on. It's a great excuse to talk to him. But John Kurpius, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Anytime, man, anytime. So we should give a little bit of background, for how we know each other. Both Delta Chi, so a little fraternity connection there. And then both J School students. Where do you want to start first? Delta Chi, J School. It's up to you.
Ooh, let's see. I guess Delta Chi, because I think that's like the least relevant connection.
It is. I know. You get out in the real world and it doesn't matter. But yes.
Yeah. So Mike and I met probably, what was it, 3 years ago now?
I think so.
I was a pledge, and we have to go around and interview all the active members.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I met you, and then we had a good conversation, found out we're both StratCom people, strategic communications at the J School. And from there, it was like, I had you as like a guy who's 2 years older than me, had done all the things that I wanted to do. And I was basically like, how do I get there? So, it was just great, honestly.
It was.
Like super helpful. And then, as you kind of went on and graduated, we've kept in touch and kind of just, you've been a little student mentor for me. So that's been really great.
Well, I appreciate
the way. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I feel like we definitely bonded a lot in philosophy class, which maybe we both like kind of censored that out as a bad memory. At this point,
dude,
but
Peter Markey's class was like a cornerstone of this friendship.
It was a lot of late nights in the student center, just like talking gibberish back and forth about what is the meaning of life and all this other stuff.
Well, you edited my paper for that class, and I didn't have any idea what was going on, and neither did you. So
no,
I don't know how we made it out alive.
But somehow we did. I remember getting out of that final, like literally 24 hours away from me graduating. Like we get out of that final exam, and I just I got out, and I think my brain just like all the steam got let out. I was so happy to be done with it.
It was the worst. That has got to be the worst class decision I've ever made in my entire undergraduate career. That was the worst one.
I would throw it up there with mine too. I would say that philosophy, that class, I didn't know what to expect, and I left knowing even less of what to expect. That's a pretty good summation of it to this point, I would think.
I would say so. Oh man.
But I want to jump in, and enough with the philosophy. That was our philosophy chat for the podcast. So we met the quota there.
Yes, we did.
I want to talk about, the incredible work you did with NSAC at Mizzou. Take me into kind of that, because I think, it's going to be a nice kind of segue into the later conversation we're going to have about, just the state of marketing and media in general. But let's start there. Let's start with NSAC, because the work you did, it was incredible.
Yeah. So for a little bit of background, NSAC is the National Student Advertising Competition. It's sponsored by AAF, the American Advertising Federation. Basically, you have like 125 schools, universities across the nation that put together a team, and you're split up into a bunch of different districts at first. So our team competed against 8 other universities for a spot in the semifinals. Since we came in first in the district competition, we were able to move on. The other 7 schools did a lot of great work, but unfortunately you can only take one. So you move on to the semifinals, and then that is a collection of all the district winners. So in that semifinal round, you have 25 schools or so, and the top 8 go on to the national competition. So you've seen everybody's work at this point. And then when you're in the national competition, it's you versus 7 other schools, best of the best. And it just comes down to what the client wants, because you're literally in a meeting with the client. So every year, this NSAC competition is sponsored by a different client. So this past year, it's not a secret, it was Adobe that was sponsoring it. So we were doing an awareness campaign for Adobe. Since a lot of that information is still proprietary, I can't really go into a ton of detail.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay.
But I can tell you that it was an awareness campaign for a B2B audience. So we got to the final rounds. We won our semifinal by, a landslide. And, we were up there presenting to these people from Adobe, which is the coolest thing ever. With COVID going on, it was a little bit different. Everything was all virtual.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's a 10-month process. We started in August of 2019, so about this time last year. And for the first semester, I was on the account team, and I was a strategist along with 3 other strategists. Then we had an account planner and an account executive. Basically, we're doing market research the entire semester.
Yeah.
So we're doing all these in-depth interviews, talking to people in the ad industry, talking to people in the target audience, kind of getting a feel for, how are we going to approach this? Adobe's got all this great technology. Who is Adobe as a brand? Who are they targeting? What are we gonna do? What's the idea? What's the creative brief going to look like? How are we going to turn this over to 15 creative side people and give them something to create? So after a bunch of surveys and interviews and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of digging through case studies and reading our case study and reading information about Adobe and all these other competitors and stuff like that, we came up with this really great idea. Turned it over to the creative team, and they really brought it to life in the spring semester. So we go, you got to turn in your plan book and basically your entire campaign in the middle of March. So it's just a dead sprint for the first 8 weeks of the semester. And that's right around when COVID hit. So our plan book was due 2 weeks after everything went online from the zoo.
Wow.
So we had to switch gears. It wasn't, okay, we have a meeting where 20 people are going to be in the same room. We're just like bouncing ideas off one another. It was then, okay, you know what? I'm spending time in the Zoom room, like just hammering it out. There are a couple of weeks getting towards the end when you have to turn in your presentation. There are a couple of 50-hour weeks that we were pulling just in terms of like being on the presentation team. There's 4 people, and it's just like going through the script time and time again. Our presentation had to be 20 minutes, and it's like, how do you fit 10 months of work into 20 minutes?
Exactly.
And especially when you can't hand the judges like a physical model of what you're doing and stuff like that, and you can't just like talk to them. How do you like bring the human element into something that's online? So it was really cool to get to talk to the judges who are like, people in ad agencies across the nation, and like people who have done like really great work. And then also in the final round, talking to the actual client and having them address us by name and being like, hey, John, like, for example, one of the judges was like, yeah, you have a really great broadcast voice. And I was like, that's funny. Thank you. And that was the only thing that I had to say in our little like Q&A session after after they watch our presentation. There's usually 10 or 15 minutes where they ask you questions, and those questions are hard. They want to know specifics. They want to know exactly how things work. They want to know where the holes are, because it's 20 minutes. You can't really cover everything as deeply as you want to. So I was really kind of happy in that hardest round to be met with like, hey, we like your voice.
You have a good voice. You have a good voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really great. Unfortunately, we didn't bring home gold. We did not get first place, but we did end up with the Best Market Research Award, which was really an awesome experience, an awesome, sort of culmination of all the work that I did, and along with a great team of like really capable people. We got 3rd place in the national competition, which is awesome.
Still
nothing to complain about bringing a trophy home. So there was, more so than just having the ability to work on a campaign and see the process and be a part of it, and to really like get into those like really deep brainstorm sessions late at night and just like sitting there for hours and hours on end, and then having somebody come in with a really great idea. It was really important to me. It was a really great experience. And then you get to the final, and you get to see all these other teams that have created something with all the same materials as you, but they've come up with something completely different. And I think it just goes to show like how versatile we all are as like creatives, and how all the research is probably the same. Our research can't possibly be that different than everybody else who did in-depth interviews and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But it's, the mind of the creative that really brings that vision to life, and everybody sees it a little bit differently. So, yeah, I mean, that's NSAC in a nutshell.
That's incredible.
So
it is. And I wanted to dive into kind of one specific part of that, because, you and I we've both been on kind of the pitch side of this, and so much of it is, it's a lot of showmanship. It's, being in the room with people, having this kind of telling this arc of, here's where we started, here's what, our task was, here's the research. And then there is a moment where you go like, ta-da, here's the magic trick. And you present kind of like the insight, the strategy, and the creative. How was that different presenting in a Zoom? Because, obviously you're not there in person. It loses a little bit of gravity in the sense that, when you're able to have a captive audience and have someone see it, you're able to kind of pull them in and pull them through this arc. Whereas if you're on Zoom with someone, they could be getting an email, they could be checking email and not even, showing it. Tell me a little bit about that. What were some of the challenges, but what were some of the opportunities you guys found as a result of that?
So I think we were a little bit lucky that, in the sense of like having to present to actual judges. So, their AAF brings them in and they're like, hey, you like really need to judge this. So it's not really like time to check email or anything.
Yeah.
And, like, they're invested in that because a lot of them did this competition when they were undergrads, because it's been around for, 40 something years. But the other part of it is like completely unrelated to, getting distracted or something like that. There is power in words. And I think that, like, we can both agree on that, being Stratcom majors in the journalism school. Both of us have a degree from there, but there is power in words, and there's power in the way that you present words. So whether you're in a virtual format, sure, you can't like physically force them to look at this thing, but what you can do is tell your story in a compelling way. So if it's well written, if it's like captivating, it has the same impact through a screen, because your delivery is really the thing that matters there. Because if I say, like the tagline for this campaign, and I just say, like, for example, our tagline for this thing was build the dreamscape. So if I say, and now you can build the dreamscape, and that kind of doesn't really, it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me. It doesn't give me goosebumps. It certainly doesn't tell me like what you're doing, what the campaign means. But if I look at you and I tell you, like, this is how this is going to work, and like help you imagine your life with the product, and then I say, this thing allows you to build the dreamscape, it's far more compelling because you've already made a case for it. And the way that you captivate people isn't, it's not just throwing information at them like, look at all this stuff. And certainly in a business to business relationship, you're not making emotional decisions. There is a human that is making an emotional decision. That's fair. It comes down to a group of decision makers who you have to individually impact. But the bottom line is, how does this improve the business's bottom line? So what features are going to help me do my job better? If I'm a manager, how does this tool help me help my people do their jobs better? How does it help me run my business more efficiently? So you present that information to them, and then at the end, you have 2 sentences. You have 3 seconds basically to tell them, why do you care? What am I going to say in 5 words or less that's going to stick with you, that's going to stay in your mind, and then when you're going to sleep at night, you're going to like, build a dreamscape, or you're just going to be thinking of that tagline, and then it goes back to how do you keep that loop going with your consumers? How do you sort of increase the number of touch points that you have? Is it an email drip campaign? Is it another experience? Is it, where are the places that you can engage with people to take them beyond the room? Because this isn't the same as sitting face to face. But the more that I'm part of your life, and the more compelling my story is, and a way that I tell it across mediums, that is far more impactful than just being in the room where it happens. To quote Hamilton, I guess. But,
I love it. I love it.
Unintentional.
No. But no, I think you bring up a good point. It's while the medium does change, good writing is good writing. And at the end of the day, like, as long as the writing is really well written and it's presented really well, while you don't have kind of the gravity of being in the same room with people, the message is still going to get across. And if anything, the message is going to get across without, any of the BS or the kind of the smoke and mirrors. And it really separates, like, these guys were just all show, or these guys had a lot of substance. It kind of strips all of that away, I feel like.
Yeah. And it's the difference between giving them a sales pitch and, giving them I guess it's a marketing pitch. I mean, yes, you're trying to sell something, but more than that, you're trying to establish a connection.
Yeah.
And I'm not like punching on sales reps right now. I think that they also have the skills.
No worries. Yeah.
And it's all about building connections, but you really want to get to the emotion behind, why, how do you draw people in? How do you create a story? How do you tell a story? And I think, that comes from good writing. It also comes from, oral delivery and the way that you think about your product. Because if you don't know your product, you're not going to be able to talk about it in a compelling way. So you have to know the ins and outs of it. And for NSAC, that meant learning 1,000,001 acronyms like DSP, DMP, all that stuff.
Yeah.
AI, ML, DL. Like, there's all these things that you have to know because the people that you're talking to know, and they will know if you don't know.
Yep.
So I guess that's my 2 cents on how to present in a Zoom room. But
I think it's good. And it's, I think you bring up I think the biggest thing in there is it's the writing, and the written word is incredibly powerful. And that's something I harp on every single day. It's like, if you can write well, you can speak well. It's those two things really go hand in hand. And I think you bring up a great point. So before we kind of dive into the reason why you're here, because I really love to get into, inside baseball marketing talk. That for me is my favorite thing. And if I could do a whole separate podcast on that, I would. What would you say, from a career standpoint, from a professional standpoint, was the biggest takeaway from your NSAC experience? Is it something where you looked at that and you're like, yes, agency land, 100% for me? Or you're like, well, maybe I want to be on the company side or an internal side, or maybe you said, I want to do something, in the middle or totally different. What was the big professional takeaway for you?
So from my side, and like from the way that I think about my career is, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to watch this podcast and be like, this guy doesn't even have a career. He's not even out of school yet. But every experience that you have is worth something. And it's worth something because it should build on your previous experiences. So like, I started out like a lot of other college kids. Like, I had a social media internship. I didn't know the first thing about social media, but I learned because I got exposure. And it was like, hey, this is a real business that is like really, going to see results from the work that I'm doing. So how do I do it? How do I do it better? And immediately after that, I was fortunate enough to study abroad. I got an internship with a public relations firm. So now I'm doing something new. I have this social media expertise, and it just so happened that at this PR firm, that's an international firm, they wanted to do some social media stuff. They said, hey, do you know anything about social media? I was like, actually, I just ran social media for a small business where I go to school. Okay, cool. So I did a bunch of other work there too. Now I work for Influence & Co., which is a content marketing firm, which doesn't really do PR, but PR is, everything's PR. Thought leadership is public relations, basically, in essence. So now I'm taking that public relations experience and all the writing experience that I got writing for all these public relations clients, and I apply that to content marketing. So then you take that to NSAC, and one of the big things we were missing for our campaign was thought leadership and content marketing, which is so important in B2B business relationships.
Totally.
Especially when you talk about, how do you establish trust with a business? It's not necessarily a person. How do you get people to see you as a valuable partner? And so it was, again, one of those late night sessions. It was 10 p.m. and everyone's like, okay, let's talk about touch points. And I was like, I really think content marketing is important. Everybody else in the room was like, what is content marketing? And, but not what is content marketing, because we all know what it is. But it's, what do you mean by thought leadership? What is your definition of it? How does that, explain it and your vision for how it plays into this campaign. And it ended up being like one of the reasons that we made it so far is because we covered all of our bases. We had this ability to establish trust with our consumers or our potential consumers. So when it comes to professional takeaways, like this was one of the first projects that I've been a part of from start to finish. And that's, you want to think that that's the way that it goes in the real world, but it's not. You sort of turn it over to different teams. Like if I'd made a creative brief, I'm not working with the creatives. They're coming back to me for feedback, but I'm not in the room, saying, oh, what about this? What about that color? What if we did something like this? I'm not designing experiences for these people. That's up to the creative team. For NSAC, I'm in the room. I'm making those decisions. I'm giving feedback on that. I'm a part of everything because I have to be, because we have to get the work done. So really, it really drove home the importance of being well-rounded, being a jack of all trades, and being a master of some. Because I don't think it's fair to say jack of all trades, master of none, because everybody's got one thing that they're just going to be really, really good at. And it's important to know how to do everything else too. So this is my forte, but I can do all that stuff. So let me help you with that.
I love that. I think the jack of all trades, master of some, I think that's, one of the best lines I've heard. And it's something that, I've been thinking about a little bit as well. It's like, and this is something my uncle would always echo to me. He said, don't just be a marketing guy. He's like, don't just be the guy who's like, every problem can be solved by marketing. It's like, you need to be able to, be conversant in the financial side of things. You need to be conversant in the operations and the product side of things. We're not asking you to, open a 1,000 by 1,000 spreadsheet and just like crunch some financial forecasts or go, put something together for a product. We're just asking you to be, a jack of all trades with it, like be able to speak it, be able to do it, and if marketing is the thing you're good at, if media is the thing you're good at, do that and be really good at that. But you can't just, isolate yourself to like, I'm going to be that one guy and that's the guy that I'm going to be, forever, because you have to be able to your point, know how everything is done, how everything is made, not because we're going to ask you to go into Photoshop and, put a bunch of just unreal stuff together, but because if you can speak it and understand where the person's coming from, it makes you a better person, and it makes you a better person professionally.
Yeah. And I mean, I think everybody should know how to do a spreadsheet. Like that's
totally.
That's like a spreadsheet 101. That's like, you have got to know how to do a spreadsheet, but you also have to know, like, conceptually, you should know how to do a spreadsheet, because, whether it's a spreadsheet or it's something else, like, I'm not a Photoshop master, but if I have a vision for something and I think it's valuable to the creative team, I'm able to go and create that, or I'm able to discuss it in their language, which is invaluable. There's not a place for people who are specialists anymore. Like, sure, you can get a job, but everything nowadays is all about multidisciplinary teams. You have to be able to do everything, because if you can only discuss things from an account strategy perspective, you will miss everything that your creative team can offer you. And same thing, vice versa. If you're only focused on the creative and you don't know how to incorporate strategy, your campaign is not going to work. So you have to be able to jump between both sides of like account strategy and creative side. You have to be able to jump back and forth all day long, and no project's going to be the same. So having the skill set to be able to see different avenues for how each project can work is so important.
And I think the specialist versus kind of generalist thing is something that has been on my mind a lot since the end of last year, but a lot kind of this year, is that you look at great athletes in sports, a lot of them will tell you they played football, baseball, basketball growing up. You look at people who have had great business careers, they'll start off in sales, they'll move to some other stuff, they'll do some other stuff, but no one is, like you said, the era of being like, I'm going to be this one guy, this is the one guy I'm going to be for my entire life. It's it's over. You have to be able to speak the language, and it happens. You're seeing it with athletes, you're seeing it with professionally, and it's something that I think is just such a relevant conversation to have, and it's such a relevant thing I think to say to people now, especially.
Well, and for that, so I mean, to continue your sports analogy, like the guy who's the quarterback for the football team, um, you know, he knows how to throw a baseball. He's
Yeah,
not going to go. I mean, no, he's not playing Major League Baseball, but in the backyard, throwing the baseball around with someone who does play Major League Baseball, they're able to play catch.
yeah,
It's not like he doesn't know how to throw a baseball or like doesn't know how to hit a volleyball or something like that. No, he's not the best at it, but he knows what it
hmm
is and he knows how to do it.
yeah,
So whether or not you have like professional skill in it doesn't really matter as long as you can, sort of get yourself there.
yeah,
But if you can throw the football and you have no idea how to throw a baseball, that's your problem. I mean,
yeah.
you can't go anywhere with that. You
You
can do the
can't.
one thing, but you really have to branch out.
Exactly, exactly. And it trickles over into everything else, I think. And, it's, being able to, be a marketer, but understand how a product is made and kind of what goes into it, or, like you said, to understand even just the landscape of B2B or a certain market, it, while on the surface, it may seem like totally different things. It informs your work, and it informs, the quality of what you're putting out. And if you're able to make a connection from like, oh, I made this connection here to this connection here, that's where a great idea, I think, sparks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I want to pivot because I've been looking forward to this basically since we got it on the books. Just, what does marketing look like, not only right now, but, what are you into? What kind of is the work you're seeing out there? Because I think there's a lot of work out there, and some of it's good. Some of it is not so great. But where do you want to start? I know we want to talk experiential. Where, what for you is something right now that you're seeing that you're really hot on?
Well, experiential marketing
Yep.
is a big thing for me right now.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, from a high level overview of marketing as a whole, I think the last 6 months have been something that first of all, nobody expected.
Totally.
I'm sure hindsight's 2020. We were kind of like, oh, like that makes sense that virus would make its way here. That makes
Yep.
perfect sense. But nobody planned for it,
Totally.
and you see right when it hit, everybody was like, okay, wait, hold on. We got to wear masks now and we got to
Yep.
shut down our business. We're going to shift to remote work.
hmm
So we're going to hold all of our cash tight. We're going to play a cards
Yeah.
close to the vest, and we're not going to do any more marketing. Like that's a want, not a need.
Yeah.
And some businesses, I don't have a statistic for you, but some businesses are like, no, we think marketing is going to be pretty important.
Totally.
So we're going to keep doing it. And the reason being because you still have consumers. They're just stuck at
Yeah.
home. So
Exactly.
you still have to market to people because otherwise they're not going to remember your brand. I mean, sure, if
hmm
you're like Pfizer or something, like, yeah, sure, you probably don't need to market. But
Yeah.
for smaller brands, especially local businesses and stuff like that, that are depending on people, for curbside pickup and stuff like that,
Yep.
you want to keep your sales up, you need to show your consumers that like you're not just selling things. You need to show them that you're there and you
Yep.
have a way for you to continue to provide value to them. And that's
Yep.
true for big box retailers, just as it is for technology companies, just as it is for the mom and pop shop that's
Totally.
downtown.
Yeah.
So when you talk about marketing, it's yeah. So right when this thing hit, everybody was like, okay, we're going to stop marketing. And then a couple of people were like sending out those thank you
Yeah.
frontline employee ads, and they were good at first. But then everybody was like, how do we tell the story of us
hmm
being thankful for frontline workers?
Yep.
And everybody had the same story arc because it's the same
Yep.
exact thing. So all of
hmm
these ads, if you edited them together, they would
Someone
look
did that
the
actually.
exact
I don't know
same.
if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Someone did that.
Yeah.
They edited
So
them all together.
it's like, how do you differentiate yourself when you want to create all the same content?
hmm
So how are you supposed to take, thousands of other brands who are all doing the same commercial spot as you and make yourself look different?
Yep.
And it comes down to like the channels that you're using, the things that you're providing to your consumers, and the fact that you're not selling anything.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's a little bit hard because it's kind of like, yeah, you want people to know about your brand. You want people to think positively about your brand, and you want to increase that brand recall. Um, so you need to be out there, but you also are like kind of trying to do something that's altruistic and
Hmm.
say, you know, we are just saying thank you. You know, we are just saying that we're here for you. It's a little bit hard in like a capitalist society, uh, but yeah, we've had to see like this major shift in the way that people are consuming media
Yeah.
and using different channels. For example, mobile YouTube is getting far less use than it used
Yep.
to because people are at home, and
Yep.
YouTube isn't seeing fewer viewers, they're just seeing more people on computers.
Yep.
um, so and then you get into the experiential marketing side of things, which is, you know, super interesting right now, because how do you do events, you know, when you have to be 6 feet apart? How do you do events that have to be less than 20 people? You
Yep.
know, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the Chainsmokers tried to do a big drive-in concert,
Yeah.
which blew up. You know, maybe not their fault, but I'm sure that they probably could have planned it a little bit better.
Hmm.
You know, people got out of their cars and started, you know, mobbing up to the front. And
Yeah.
okay, now there's no social distancing. Nobody's wearing masks. This isn't
Yep.
a drive-in concert because
Hmm.
you turned it into a parking lot.
Exactly.
So, but lots of cool things are also happening because people are starting to figure out that, like, okay, you know, this isn't really something that like we're going to just like wait it out. This is
Hmm.
going to fundamentally change the fabric of marketing as a
Totally.
whole, and
Totally.
especially, I mean, I don't want to speak for, you know, things that I'm not, you know, very well versed in
No,
or
it's
anything
okay.
like that, um, but experiential marketing is just so cool because you have all this technology that's making it more accessible. So,
Hmm.
I mean, you have a phone that has AR capabilities now,
Yep.
you know, especially like iPhone, Android, all that, like Google phone, all that stuff has like augmented reality kits built into
Yep.
the camera. So you
Yeah.
hold it up and you can point it at anything, and you're transported to an augmented reality, you know, world.
Totally.
Same thing goes with the Oculus headsets and, you know, VR headsets of that nature. It's, you know,
Hmm.
put a couple of like real obstacles in a room or objects in a room and turn everything else into a virtual world. You know,
Yep.
it's there's so much that you can do, and it makes it more accessible in terms of like cost and the number of people that you can reach, but you have to continually like push the envelope.
Hmm.
So when it comes down to like marketing during COVID, people have to get creative because
Yeah.
you have to be 6 feet away. So how
Yep.
do these, I mean, how do these brands,
Hmm.
you know, sort of abide by the guidelines, but still find ways to make meaningful events happen? Because it's not, you're right, like we discussed earlier, you can't really do it through Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, Zoom happy hours, everybody was infatuated with those for the first 2 weeks. And then
Then they
everyone
got,
was like, oh my God, I
yeah,
don't want to do this
totally.
anymore. Like, because you can't say no to it. Honestly, that's my
You
problem with
can't.
it.
That's
It's
the
like,
tough thing.
they're like, I know you're at home. And I was like, well, I just don't want to hang out with you.
I just don't want to log on a
um,
Zoom with all of you people right now.
yeah. Um, but, you know, if we sort of look at things from like outside the lens of COVID, because I feel like everybody talks about COVID,
Mhm.
75% of US consumers think brands need to use experiential marketing to be successful in the
Yep.
future. But you do see this a little bit of a generational divide,
Totally.
because while, you know, the boomers care about experiences, the millennials care about experiences, and Gen Z cares about experiences, they care about them in different ways. So
Hmm.
boomers, you know, they like it, that's fine.
Yeah.
They're going to recall the brand because they're like, okay, this is a branded event, got
Yep.
it, cool, locked
File
it,
that away.
I know which
Yeah.
brand this is. Millennials do the same thing. They're like, okay, you know, like, this is cool, I'm going to take my picture,
Hmm.
and then they're going to go home and they're going to remember, like, oh yeah, this was an event for, you know, whatever brand. Gen Z is where it gets, you know, a little bit difficult
Hmm.
because they're not really in it for the activation and the branded event side of
Yeah.
things. They're not really there to recall a brand. They're there because of FOMO. You
Totally.
know, somebody took a picture with this cool like art installation, and now I saw that, so I need to go take my picture with the cool art installation, so that because it's
Yep.
a competition. You
Hmm.
know, I want everybody to know that, like, oh, I was there, I was doing this thing that like maybe they didn't get to do, and I hope that people see my picture and they
Yep.
know, like, oh wow, like he had the chance to do that. Man, like I hope that's still there so I can go take my picture. And they're
Yep.
going to go do like a handstand on it or like do a backflip in front of it so that
Mm-hmm.
they went and they did something cool there, you know?
Yep.
But I'm going to go home at the end of the day and I'm going to be like, wow, that art thing I was at was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But well, I don't care what the brand was because I took my
Exactly.
picture and I'm on my way.
Totally.
But the thing that you can do is, I mean, you have to look at these events with, you know, an interesting sort of view. So there's
Yeah.
a 5-foot view, a 10-foot
Yep.
view, and a 30-foot view.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5-foot view is, hey, I'm there, I'm participating in whatever it is. So if that's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm actually staying at the Taco Bell hotel that they did in August of last year, you
Yep.
know, if I'm going to IKEA to scan my little tag and get my prize for answering questions correctly, like
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. That's the 5-foot view. I'm there. 10-foot view is the guy standing in line behind me who's looking at me like, wow, that guy looks like he's having fun. That looks so cool. I can't wait because I'm up next.
Mm-hmm.
And the 30-foot view is the person that's way back there walking by saying, what is that?
Yeah.
You know? And if it's too small and if it's not interesting enough, they're going to keep on walking.
Yeah.
Your goal with the 30-foot view is like, make this event something that people, that's going to catch somebody's attention. They'll be like, what is that? Maybe we should,
Yeah.
you know, go to 10 feet and, you know, see what it's all about. Maybe we go to 5 feet and we talk about it and we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go home to our social circles and we talk about it some more because everybody's stuck at home. So what,
Yep.
like, I don't know what you've been doing at home, but I have a small circle of people that like I hang out
Yep.
with
Yep.
because I feel like we got a little bubble. You know, I got a
Yeah.
roommate. If I go do something cool or if I see something cool, I'm going to sit down at the table and I'm going to talk about it with my roommate. And then my roommate
Totally.
knows that there is this brand that's doing something cool, that there's like an event downtown or there's an
Mm-hmm.
art installation or there's like some taste testing. I probably don't do a taste test right now. That seems like
Yeah.
a
Maybe
bad
not. Maybe
idea
not.
for
No, it's
COVID,
okay.
but now he's aware of that and he trusts
Mm-hmm.
it because I came to him while we're making dinner together and I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like I did this thing today.
Mm-hmm.
It works with everybody else's social circles too. What brands
Yeah.
can't do when we're home is, you know, they're not in our living rooms. You know, we're
Yep.
not out in the world seeing them. So they have to reach us on those little, you know, cell phone dopamine delivery devices
Right
that we've
here.
got there. They got to reach us on TV. They got to reach us on the computer. They got to reach us on our iPads. They got to reach us in new ways
Yeah.
so that we, as you know, I think everybody's like inadvertently a micro influencer.
Totally.
I think
Oh,
that's like,
100%.
yeah. But those micro influencers have more pull than macro influencers. You know, if I have a
Mm-hmm.
million followers, nobody cares what I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm like Kim Kardashian or something, people are going to go buy this product, but that's because I'm Kim Kardashian,
Yeah.
you know? But if I'm just John,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Mark and I know
Yep.
Lindsay and I know like Sheridan and all these people, they're going to trust my opinion because I am coming to them as an authentic person, not
Yep.
as someone who's getting paid to promote this thing.
Totally. Totally. I
That was a
think
rant.
no, I think it's good. And I think the biggest thing that you hit on there that, you know, I've, you know, been especially kind of, you know, prevalent top of mind for me is it's like you said, it's how do you bring that experience home? Because that's if you're a marketer right now, if you're a brand, that's the playing field you have to work with is, you know, you can do some stuff, you know, out at a store, you know, but it's not going to have the same punch. You're probably not going to get the same return on it, but it's how can I do the experience at home? And the one of the pieces of work that I thought was just incredible was, I think it was Epic Games. They did a Travis Scott concert live in the middle of a game. And it was just one of those things where like a total, like talk about bringing the experience home in a fun way is you can play Fortnite and you can see Travis Scott kind of like performing in the game, this incredible concert. And it got a ton of buzz on social, but I think you hit on so much there. And I think the most important thing is it's just the authenticity of it. Like if you are going to do any of this stuff, it's all about authenticity. Like, you know, if you can sniff an influencer from a mile away, I mean, you just can. It's,
Well, yeah, because you got to
whether
put hashtag ad up front.
you got to put hashtag ad. You normally the copy in the post is like, why do I love
it's
this?
unbearable.
It's unbearable. It doesn't seem authentic. It's like, why do I love this seltzer? It's got, you know, 0 whole grains. Or
it's more carbonated than the other thing. But you make an interesting point, and I actually have something to say about that. Is you know, something that I've seen in like the research that I've done over the last couple of years is you have this idea of an advertisement. Like everybody knows, they're like,
Mhm.
oh, that's an ad. It's a stupid ad. And we like the Super Bowl ads because they're
Yeah.
funny and they're engaging. And we're like, oh, I'm going to remember Doritos because the T-Rex picked up the Dorito truck or something like that. Or they're like,
Yeah.
we're going to fix the world by throwing a Snickers into a gigantic hole. Like,
Yep.
who came up with
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
But the goal as an advertiser, and my goal for my career, is to create ad experiences that
Mhm.
are first and foremost experiences, and
Yep.
secondly, that aren't an interruption. So if
Oh,
I'm
yes.
scrolling through and I get a promoted tweet or something like that and it's completely irrelevant, I'm probably just like, not only am I going to not remember that, I'm probably not going to engage with that brand's content anymore. I might even click, don't show me ads of this type. This isn't relevant to
Totally.
me, something like that. Or I'm going to completely ignore, that
Mhm.
entire channel. And I already ignore all the ads on social media. I have an ad blocker on my computer so I don't have to
Yeah,
see things all the time. But you have to create ad experiences that provide value to a consumer. So
totally.
it's not just, okay, we've taken you through the consumer journey, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, get to
Mhm.
the buy stage so that this product can provide you value. No, 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 no. You have to provide the consumer with value throughout
Totally.
the entire consumer journey. So look at your touch points. Where are you interacting with consumers? Where can you be interacting with consumers? And what
Mhm.
is the experience that the consumer is having in
Yep.
that moment? Because
Mhm.
if it's not relevant to them, they're done. Their journey is going to take them
Exactly.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're not going to get to the buy stage.
Mhm. I think that is, I think, I need to clip that part of the podcast because I think that's just the most, incredibly important thing for anyone to hear is, we all know the stat, we've all heard of it. You see, thousands of ads a day, you recall, less than blankety blank of them. It's, you got a better shot of maybe dunking a basketball than you do of remembering one of the thousands of ads. You probably know the stat better than me.
Yeah, I mean, I see so many ads that I don't even know that I'm seeing ads anymore because I'm
Exactly.
just so hardwired to ignore them that
Mhm.
they don't even enter my brain.
And I would say
You
that's
know?
something that's not, restricted to ad students like us. It's pretty much everyone. Like, and I think the most important thing you said there is that you have to create ads that are going to be an experience, like period, end of story, full stop. Like it has to be an experience that adds value because otherwise you're going to miss it. You recalled that Snickers ad, perfectly, but you recalled it because you were in a moment where you were having an excellent experience, watching something that was relevant. That's like if you can do all those things, but I'm not going to recall the one of the thousands of Facebook ads I saw, this morning scrolling through social media. And you have to be able to do that. And during COVID, it's a little bit different because it's maybe more of a digital first experience, and that maybe you're putting out some kind of a fun thing to do with the product, and you can create an experience around that, or maybe it's even like a video experience with someone you're working with to create content. It's like the
Mhm.
experience of just watching it and the fun is a why you're going to remember it. But if you're just
Yeah,
putting out stuff where it's like, here's our product, click the buy now button, snappy line of copy, dude, you're losing. I mean, that's
yeah,
just what it is.
yeah. And you bring up an interesting point there, and something that goes back to the Fortnite comment you made a little while ago about the Travis Scott concert is, when you talk about video,
Hmm.
yeah, video is great. Video is the most compelling way to tell your story because it's like one of the most human ways to tell your story apart from being directly in front of somebody and
Totally.
telling your story and having them experience it. Because, I can see with my own two eyes, but if you have a camera that's, for example, GoPro does an amazing job of telling stories because they're
Oh my
telling it from
gosh.
different
Yeah.
angles.
Yeah.
But as technology, continues to progress, you have these new things that are like interactive videos. So it's like, where do
Hmm.
you want the video to go? Because if you want this, then click here. And if you want that, then click here. And it's getting to the point where when you start incorporating artificial intelligence and stuff like that, like there are things that
Yeah.
sellers, like salespeople, are using to tell whether or not people are engaged over a Zoom call,
Hmm.
and it's all machine learning, it's all artificial intelligence. So if you start incorporating that technology into just video consumption and
Yeah.
being able to tailor experiences to every unique consumer, that opens millions and millions of doors that
Yeah.
previously were closed. The
Hmm.
thing that marketers need to understand and advertisers need to understand is that the faster that you can take new technology and implement it, to create new, unique experiences that haven't been had before, the better off you're going to be. How many people have gone to a concert in a video game? Pretty much none, unless they went to that Travis Scott thing with Fortnite, you know? So that's brand new. Nobody's had that experience before, but now somebody's done it. So what's the next? You know, where do you go from there? And honestly, Epic Games has really been pushing the envelope on a lot of that stuff. And some of the brands that are using Fortnite, you know, Wendy's, VMLY&R is their agency of choice, but they did a huge Wendy's campaign that was completely free. All they did was download Fortnite, play as Wendy, you know, the actual mascot, and go to the game and smash freezers because they wanted to drive home what message? Always fresh, never frozen, you know? And, you know, what more relevant way to do that than to go into a game that everybody loves and smash freezers? And you'd think, oh, you know, they're not really playing the game. They're not really going to get anything out of it. They got people in a game where you're supposed to like kill everybody else. They got people to sit down and smash freezers with them. That is amazing. That's amazing.
It's incredible.
And they got billions of impressions on this thing, and they didn't spend a dime. So the faster that you are able to incorporate these new technologies, and you're seeing it with AR and VR, you know, the more you're going to save. Wendy's did this thing for $0.00. That's free 99 right there.
It is.
But it's a new experience. It's cheaper than you've ever had it before, and you can reach far more people, you know? We're talking about 1 billion impressions here and millions and millions and millions of engagements on a completely free campaign. That's what technology is doing for marketers, but only if you know how to use it, only if you know how to leverage those channels.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the best thing in there, and I think it's, you know, a tough thing for some people to break out of, because you think, you know, marketing, it's a lot of like snappy copy, buy here, click it. It's like, you have to understand that like the return of doing something like that as a Wendy's is not in the, like, you're not hoping, you obviously you want people to go buy, you know, spicy chicken nuggets or a, you know, or a Baconator, but the value, you need to focus first on the value side of it, of like, this is just going to be like, bottom line, a lot of fun. Like, it's just going to be a really fun experience. I'm going to tell everyone about it. You know, you're leveraging a whole kind of community of gamers. And if you think with that kind of lens first, then it allows you to then, it frees you from like kind of the gut instinct a lot of us have at first to be like, I got to sell something at the end. It's like, I need to sell, like I need to ask for a sale. It's like, no, just have a lot of fun, offer a cool experience, you know, and people are going to, you know, they are going to purchase, but you can't go in with a mindset of like, we need to drive X amount of sales of Baconators because that's what we need. It's like, no, I'm just going to have a lot of fun and offer something fun, and the chips are going to fall where the chips are going to fall.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit dangerous sometimes to go into it with the mindset of, you know, build it and they will come, because they won't. They won't come if you build it, because you have to create an experience that's actually worth something to them. So what are they getting out of it? For starters, you know, is it something cool? You know, if you're Tesla or something like that, are they getting to fly their own SpaceX rocket, but really they're just sitting in a warehouse with a VR headset on? Or, you know, do they get to play Fortnite with, you know, Wendy? You know, are they smashing so many freezers that they're getting hungry for chicken nuggets, and then finally you've sold chicken nuggets? Like, maybe, who cares? Maybe. The problem that marketers have is that this stuff isn't really measurable. You know, sure, you can measure impressions, but, you know, an impression says that I saw that. That doesn't mean that it made an impression on me. You know, it means that I read your post. I could be talking trash about your post right now, and you're counting it as a win for you because I'm one of those millions of impressions that you got. Sure, I might have given you an engagement because I wanted to like quote tweet something and, you know, trash your tweet or something like that. That counts as an engagement, but you're not getting anything from that. In fact, I'm negatively impacting your brand. So when you talk about experiences, sure, you can get 5,000 people through an experience. You can get 100 people through an experience. You can get 100,000 people through an experience, sure. But you have to understand that, like, that doesn't mean that they're going to go buy something. And it's hard to prove a return on investment. It's getting easier to prove that, but it's hard to prove a return on investment because you kind of have to take a chance. You got to say, you know what do we want to get them to understand about us? You know, we have 3 seconds to make an impact. And if you're planning an event, if you can't like sum up the experience and the messages you want people to take away from it in 2 sentences, don't throw that event. Like,
Totally.
don't do it.
Yeah.
You need to figure out how to take all your research and distill it into one like concise insight and build your event from that. You
Yep.
know, I did a campaign for Red Robin last fall, and we were working.
Yeah.
You participated in some of the
I did.
IDIs for that.
I was in some of the
Yeah.
IDIs. Yeah.
So we're talking about casual dining and fast casual dining. So, you know, they had this insight that people are going out to eat more, which is true. But, you know, they're not really staying in restaurants anymore. People are taking things to go. People are going for fast food. You know, they want to go to Chipotle, but they want to eat at their kitchen table. You know, so
Yep.
how do I sum up all that research in one sentence? People are going out more, but sitting down less.
Exactly.
That's your insight.
Love it.
So stop spewing facts, stop spewing like numbers and data points and stuff like that, and figure out what the data actually says. Figure out what your message is. Figure out what you want your experience to be, and then go do that. Because then if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
And you have to, I mean, you have to reach them where they're at. Because they're not going to go out of their way to come find your brand.
Exactly. And I think the higher level thing with all of this and what we're touching on with the experience is that it's an attention game at the end of the day. Like, this is not this is not like, hey, we're going to put out a social media post and like that's going to be it. Like, it's about keeping people's attention constantly. And, you know, whether it's through, you know, I'm going to go play, you know, Fortnite for 2 hours and I'm going to smash, you know, freezers. That's 2 hours of my attention that Wendy's now has. And, you know, and it's incredible.
And
that's
Wendy's like, for 2 hours.
For 2 hours, which is mind blowing to think about. It is from a marketing standpoint, from an anything standpoint, you know, that's incredible. And it's, you know, these experiences, what they allow you to do is they allow you to attract a lot of attention and keep a lot of people's attention. Because, you know, if you're able to throw an event, you know, whether it be digital, whether it be in person, or whether, you know, it be, you know, something like you talk about with Red Robin, where if they're going out more and sitting down less, like, okay, what experience can we tailor? What attention driving thing can we tailor so that we can capture that? You know, that's where you end up winning ultimately. It is. And if, you know, that's, I think, the most important thing about experiences now and about any kind of stuff you're putting out now is it's about attention at the end of the day. And it's less about like an impression, but it's more about, you know, am I taking up space in your brain? If you're a brand and you're taking up space in someone's brain, you're winning. I mean, that's just what it is, period.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, especially with technology that's developing faster and faster, like, we have the technology to make these great experiences happen, but we don't have the content. People haven't figured out how to use the technology. So sure, I mean, I have an augmented reality kit on my phone built into the camera. I don't have any augmented reality content to toy around with. If there was branded content, I'd probably be playing with it. You know, that's why Pokemon Go was such a hit, because it was new, it was fresh. It took people out into the world and it turned their world into something else.
Yes.
But when you talk about, you know, staying top of mind, when you talk about attention and, you know, how to command a consumer's attention, you know, for any amount of time at all, whether it's 3 seconds or 2 hours, smashing freezers in Fortnite, it's not about the event that is, you know, gathering your attention. Sure, the event, you need the event. The event is like the cornerstone of it. It's about what goes on behind the scenes of the event. So yeah, you need a creative idea that pushes the envelope, that gives people a unique experience that they can't get anywhere else. And it needs to be driven by your brand and your brand's values, missions, ideals, and message. But it also needs to be driven digitally and by technology, because an event where they get something out of it and they get a cool experience and they get their picture and then they go home, that's great. That's awesome. You know what? You probably got some customers from that.
Yeah.
But if you incorporate the digital side of things and you continue to provide experiences for your consumers, you're taking them through the consumer journey and you're making it fun for them. You're giving them a reason to care about your brand, and you're developing a relationship with them, because, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with advertising history. It used to be one to many. So I'm a brand and I'm selling everything, you know, come buy my stuff. You know, it was very much outbound marketing. And then it was like, well, you know, like maybe that's not the way to do it. You know, well, let's develop some target audiences. Then it's one-to-one. And you're talking about, oh, okay, you know, like it's me to you, and I'm selling this thing directly to you. But Now it's not, I mean, yeah, it's still one-to-one, but now we're talking about hyper personalization.
Yep.
I don't want them to
Exactly.
sell a product to me because I'm a journalism major. I want them to sell me a product because I'm John.
Hmm.
And the brands that learn how to do that and learn how to create unique, tailored experiences are the brands that are going to survive. And the ones
Totally.
that don't adapt and adopt new technology and provide unique experiences, they're not going to make it.
Exactly. And one of the things I think is the best and some of the coolest work I've seen, with this is, and the best way to get like a really unique one-to-one experience with kind of a personal element to it has been, for me at least, it's been with podcasts and working with, content creators. Like if I'm going to listen to, I'm someone who listens to a lot of Bill Simmons. So if I'm listening to Bill Simmons and he's reading me an ad about something that is relevant to me, that's your one-to-one. I'm working with a guy who's got a ton of reach, is a trusted voice, creates a lot of relevant, high quality content. And now he's reading me an ad that is incredibly relevant to me. And it doesn't even feel like an ad. It feels like I'm sitting in someone's living room, and it, it could be someone like you, like just talking about like, hey, going on, now is, check out the show on HBO, or do something like that. That's where you're really, I think, getting a lot of, a lot of bang for your buck as far as one-to-one. As I'm talking, you're already leveraging the relationship I have in an audio format, which I think a lot of people can agree is incredibly intimate, and it's only becoming more and more so. And you're hitting me with something that's relevant to me because I listen to that guy, and it's, not really, bullet points or any of that stuff. It's like, just tell me about it. That is where you are kind of getting a little bit of that micro influencer, living room stuff, where it's like, hey, this is it, check it out, for my listeners,
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that isn't it just right now, something that I've seen is an incredible way to do that one-to-one, in a way that really sticks with people and doesn't feel like an ad.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of cool things happening like that. Personally, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, and I
Mhm.
think that's because it's not that I'm podcast averse.
Yeah.
It's that I couldn't deal with the ads, honestly,
Gotcha.
because
Interesting.
they would log on, they'd do their intro, they'd be like, yeah, like welcome to the show. Like today we're talking about this, but first, I want to take a moment to talk about this, new, like sleepwear that I'm,
Yeah.
trying out. And let me tell you what, I have slept so good the last few nights. And I'm like, I don't care because this is a
Yeah.
podcast about experiential marketing. I
Yeah.
do not care that you got good sleep last night. Now, if you're going to come on there and be like, yeah, you can do this experience with, you can manage all these touch points with like a CRM piece of software. For
Hmm.
example, you want to use like Oracle, Salesforce, something like that. Like, okay, now you're talking about effective advertising because you
Yes.
have said, you've made a point, and then you've said, yeah, if you want to do something like this, here are options, and I think it's
Exactly.
super important to still disclose, be like, you know what, to be honest, like that's a sponsor of ours, but the more that it, or I guess not the more, but the less it feels like an interruption,
Hmm.
the better off advertisers are. And so we're trying to figure out how to take things that are like inherently an
Yeah.
interruption, and historically have been an interruption.
Yep.
They're breaking up the page in the newspapers and the penny press way back when,
Hmm.
and they're giving us a 10-minute break from our favorite TV shows, unless you're
Yep.
watching on like a streaming service and you're paying to avoid ads. I'm an advertiser and I pay to avoid ads. That's how
Yeah.
much, like, I
I'm right
love
there
ads,
with
but I
you.
hate ads.
Yeah.
So how do you provide value to a consumer?
Hmm.
How do I get value from watching this thing?
Hmm.
Okay, maybe if I'm hungry and it's a food ad, then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like if there's a special code in there that gets me $5 off, then I might order Chipotle or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you're just like going to tell me about mesothelioma and that I'm like entitled to, a cash, award
Totally.
or something like that, or if I'm, it just doesn't
It
it
doesn't.
didn't doing it for me. So
And I one of the best examples I saw that I think you bring up a great example with that podcast is Masters of Scale. It's a podcast about business. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about starting a business. All of their sponsors are business type sponsors, whether it's, AT&T for business, Chase for business, Zoom was one of their sponsors.
mhm.
Like, and you talk about incredibly relevant. You're working remote, you're working with a lot of people. Like, hey, you're listening to this podcast and you're already in the state. Like, here's one thing that you can add to your entrepreneurial toolkit to make your meetings run smoother. And it's just like, it's one of those things where you hear it and
Yeah.
you're like, that's not an ad at that point. It's like, oh shoot, like that can actually help me. And it doesn't feel like an interruption. But I think what you said is, you're so on the nose with it. Like, ads have historically been interruptions. And with now the ability through technology to pay to avoid those interruptions or to install an ad blocker, you have to not think of yourself, you have to not think of yourself as an interruption anymore. You have to think of yourself of, how can I be in someone's life in a way that is organic, isn't forced, doesn't feel like an interruption, because that's where the attention's at. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, and it goes back to technology. Like, pretty much everything I do goes back to technology.
Yeah.
I'm a tech geek till I die,
I love it. Yeah.
But when you take machine learning and AI algorithms and you apply those to something like a social platform, you can see the kind of content that people are engaging with. You can see what platform they're using.
Yep.
I'm not getting an ad for an Android case because I use an iPhone. So I'm getting ads for iPhone cases, or, I don't think cookies are going to be around much longer, because Google's already talking about, discontinuing the use of those, and, third-party cookies aren't going to really serve advertisers much longer. But you're talking about tracking people, and they don't know how you're using your data. And I completely agree. As a consumer, I still have pretty strong feelings about like my own privacy and things like that.
Yeah.
But as a marketer, having that data at your fingertips and being able to say, okay, John searched for shoes yesterday and they were this kind of shoe, but he also searched for belts. So what goes between shoes and belts? A pair of pants. So
Pants, yeah.
maybe he's looking for a suit. But it also comes down to, this happened to me when I bought my last pair of sunglasses. I do a lot of research about products before I buy. I spent 6 months. This is probably ridiculous. I spent 6 months shopping for the perfect pair of sunglasses, and I found them.
Yeah.
And the week after I bought them, I was getting ads for the same sunglasses. You know how annoying that is? Because I'm like,
So
no. I already gave you $150. Like, I already gave you $100. I already bought the shoes. I already bought the sunglasses. I already bought, the basketball, or, the wine glasses or something like that. I don't want to be advertised to about those anymore. But if I bought wine glasses, chances are I might make a martini. So you should probably advertise some martini glasses or some other kitchenware.
Yes.
If I'm shopping for a suit, you better advertise a dress shirt,
Yes.
Because chances are I'm in the market for something similar. But since the attribution isn't quite there yet in terms of, oh, I saw this ad, then I bought something, we're not able to like really prove that correlation yet. And it's getting there, and it's getting better every single day, because the faster technology evolves, the faster technology evolves.
Yes.
But you have to stop advertising to people who have already completed the consumer journey. Totally. You have to start a new one, or loop it back for a new product or something like that. You have to provide something new, providing value. Otherwise, you're going to turn them off. You're like, I'm probably not going to buy that brand of sunglasses anymore because I kept getting advertisements for it. I don't need to buy another pair of sunglasses for 3 years. So talk to me about sunglass care kits, something like that.
Exactly. Yes. Or here's like 5 ways to style your sunglasses. Like, you've got new sunglasses, like, here's 5 ways you can style them. Or here's a, like you said, a lens cleaning kit, or, here's cool things you can, cool ways to, share your sunglasses out, like anything at that point. But don't, like you said, if I'm giving you the money, like, don't try to close the sale again. But that's where you get into kind of the more attention-based stuff.
And what you've done there is you've, sort of, I know that we both worked for Influence & Co., but you've sort of introduced content marketing, and the beauty of content marketing, which is, okay, I had to put in my email and my phone number and stuff like that to buy your sunglasses.
Yep.
You got my information. So a week after my purchase, hey, are you enjoying your sunglasses? Here are replacement lenses if you want to change the color or something happens. Here's how you take care of them. And you're spacing these email drip campaign emails out, at an appropriate interval. So every, once a month or something like that, it's like, hey, to go back to the sunglasses thing, it's like, hey, here's how we see our world through our lenses. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. You sell fashion sunglasses, but you also sell sports sunglasses. So, oh, now I'm into tennis, so I need to get like an athletic pair of sunglasses or something like that. But I just bought, something else. So maybe I'll go buy these because I didn't know that I needed those, and I didn't know that you sell those. or sold those, sold. Oh my gosh. But you're continuing to provide value because it's not a transaction, it's a relationship.
It is.
And relationships are inherently not transactional. And if they are, you should like really talk to somebody about that.
You should review your relationships, or if that's it's not good.
I gave you $100, and now we're finally at a point in time where you can give me value beyond your product. You can give me knowledge that I don't have. And as such, you can build my brand loyalty. So the next time I buy a product from you, you can tell me, I bought brown dress shoes from you. You can tell me what pants look good with those brown dress shoes, or like 8 different ways to wear brown. Everything is just so interconnected, and you have to do all of it well. If you drop the ball in one spot, then you're losing your consumer. So you have to have experiences like rooted. You have to create a platform that is rooted in experience. So your consumer journey has to be rooted in experience. And that journey doesn't stop when people buy your product. They continue to have these experiences, and they continue to share these experiences.
Yes.
So you have to sort of like bolster every part of this consumer journey. You have to take every single person and make the journey unique for them, because they're all unique people with different interests, different wants, different needs. And like I said before, the brands that are able to do that and able to figure out how to do that with new technology and implement that faster, those are the ones that are going to make it. Those are the ones that are going to be successful. And the ones that don't, sorry, you missed it.
No, exactly. And I think that's an incredible point. I couldn't agree with you more. You have to be there, and you have to be building a relationship, because the purchase, that's a momentary thing. Like it just is. Like, I'm going to give you my credit card, you're going to buy. That's, that moment happens in a couple of seconds. Like, the relationship after that, that is where you build the long-term brand value. The like, hey, like, I really like these guys. Like, I've, gotten a lot of tips, a lot of this. I've, done some cool videos that they've shot me, or they've, had all this really cool stuff. Like, now I'm going to go back. And you have to be focusing on, to your point, the full part of that journey. You cannot just be living in the, let's get the sale, we'll get out, life is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever had buyer's remorse. Like, you bought something, you're like, oof, maybe
every now and again,
maybe I shouldn't have bought that. Like, bringing experiences to your consumers is, granted, this is just one thing, but you're not just impacting the consumers that wanted your product, you're impacting the people that impulse bought your product and felt bad about it. Because 2 weeks later, when they check their email and, they bought a hammock, not remembering that they live in the heart of Chicago, and they're like, oh, wow, I bought a hammock for this camping trip. Now I got to go return it. And I'm never going to buy a hammock again because I live in an urban, sprawl or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, here's, 5 ways to hang your hammock in an urban environment. So, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Like,
exactly.
You're providing me value. You're providing something that I can do with your product that's outside the norm, You're giving me the opportunity to go and have an experience with your thing. And as a consumer of your product, I'm taking you with me on that experience. So I think you hit it on the head on that. But
no, I love it. I want to move to the rapid fire. I feel like we're definitely going to have you on again. If TikTok ends up getting banned, I feel like we could do 2 hours on TikTok. Or if it doesn't end up getting banned and is somehow, out at a different American company that's bought it out, we could do 2 hours on that. So I want to save a little bit of content because we're definitely going to have you on again.
Sounds good.
I want to get to the rapid fire. So first question is, we both, went to school at Mizzou, Columbia, one of the all-time greatest college towns.
The greatest college town.
The greatest college town, you're right. What is your go-to dinner spot? You got someone visiting.
Ooh.
What's your go-to dinner spot?
Oh man, 44 Canteen is 100% the go-to. They got these mean chicken tacos there, and you got to just drown them in hot sauce, but they are the best. I actually used to work at a place right behind there, and I went to 44 Canteen so often that they still know that I get chicken tacos every time I go.
Okay. That's an excellent. I would have probably said the Heidelberg. That's one that's That's close to me.
We've
Marty's
been to the
Wings is
Heidelberg
like,
a couple of times.
the Heidelberg has a lot of fond memories. I feel like I imprinted on it. I went there, you know, like within my first couple weeks of school, and I just imprinted on me. So, but 44 Canteen, like you said, that's a mean, you know, set of chicken tacos. I'm a fan.
Absolutely.
Okay, next question. What is you know, your most favorite, you know, ad that you've seen? What is the one piece of work where you're like, that is just absolutely friggin' bulletproof right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay, the one that I cannot stop thinking about, the one that I always bring up, and I brought it up earlier, is the Taco Bell Hotel.
Yes.
I think that is, well, first of all, I'm like a nerd for experiential marketing, but that is experience taken to the max. You are talking about hot tubs that are themed like hot sauces. You're talking about Taco Bell manicures in the spa. You are talking about rooms that are themed like Doritos Locos Tacos and stuff like that. So that's awesome. I'm sorry. I don't even eat at Taco Bell that much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like Taco Bell is never like, oh yeah, I really want Taco Bell. But I would go stay at the Taco Bell hotel just, you know, like I pointed out, just to say that I did it.
Yeah.
Just to say I did it. The other thing, I'm a bit of, I don't know how to phrase it. I like to make cocktails. I like to make cocktails a lot. That's one of my hobbies, which is probably, it's a good hobby in moderation, but
exactly.
you know, I think I got to put that in as a disclaimer. It's like one or two cocktails, and then it's like you're done with the hobby for the night. Aviation Gin, Ryan Reynolds. Everybody knows that he's a stakeholder.
So good.
He's had some creative input, but they're known for some pretty good commercials. So when Peloton kind of hit the fan with that ad around Christmas time last year, Aviation Gin picked up that actress and was like, hey, like what if we, you know, turn this around real quick, you know, 4 weeks later, and and we put her at a bar drinking Aviation Gin martinis with her friends, saying like, oh, it's okay, like you didn't need him anyways, he thinks this about you, and that's why he bought you a Peloton. That's hilarious. Because what you've done is you've taken another brand who has stumbled, and honestly their stocks did recover, but they tumbled pretty fast. You've taken another brand and something that everybody's talking about, and you seamlessly inserted yourself into the situation. Now everyone's like, oh, did you see that Peloton thing? It's like, dude, we're so far beyond that. Did you see the Aviation Gin spoof?
Totally. Yeah.
So those are my favorite ones right now. I'm trying to think of another one. Basically anything that's like interactive, I think is super cool. So any sort of like experience, any sort of something that like I can do, you know, be a part of, something that like really pertains to me is super cool. I'll tell you what my least favorite ad is. When I'm scrolling through Snapchat and it's like those dumb games where like the person that's like demoing it is like so bad at the game. And I see that for what it is. Like, you want us to be frustrated so that we download the game and we're like, yeah, I'm better than that person. They're not going to get me. They're not going to get me. I'm just frustrated.
Not going to get me. Yeah. Okay, I love that. Next question. What are you most excited about in the world of marketing and advertising, you know, over the next decade, let's say?
VR, AR, and AI. So it's the ability to, like I said before, drive down costs. You know, you're improving the bottom line. But you're also, I mean, it's a difference between, you know, if I'm working with AR, I'm going to put your car in a warehouse, and you're going to drive around a couple of real obstacles, and then you're going to be using AR, and it's going to be like you're driving in a whole different thing. But if I'm using virtual reality, you're in a cardboard cutout of a car where the steering wheel and gas pedals and brake pedals feel real, and you're driving a Maserati down any road in the world. So some of the coolest places to drive, you know, windy mountain roads, you know, cliffside roads, race tracks, you can do whatever you want. And Maserati doesn't have to worry about you crashing a $100,000 car. But, you know, the same thing goes for Ford. You know, there is some liability in letting people test drive your things. But if you're like, oh, you know, for example, Tesla, if you want to pay for the upgraded ludicrous mode, it's like, here's the standard Tesla, flip a switch. This is what it's like in ludicrous mode. You're not getting in a new car.
Exactly.
You're sitting in, it kind of sounds stupid. You're sitting in a cardboard cutout of a Tesla in a
Yep.
warehouse somewhere,
Mhm.
playing with what is essentially an Xbox controller connected to a steering wheel.
Yep.
So
I love
those
it.
are the things that I'm the most excited about. Anything technology related.
Anything technology related. I think it's awesome. And I think I agree with you. It's obviously there's a couple of technological hurdles yet to kind of be figured out. But I think once you figure them out, and it's not if, it is once, it's going to happen. You've got just the stuff you can do is limitless.
Once they figure out how to make 5G go around corners,
yep,
it's a whole new thing.
Okay, so this next one, it's a Mizzou related one. Favorite Mizzou tradition? There's a lot of them, but do you have a favorite one?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm a bad Mizzou student. I didn't do a lot of the traditions. I didn't kiss the 50. I had the chance to kiss the 50. Maybe I did. I don't know. I had a couple of days where I was like working with the football team for CBS Sports.
Nice.
I guess I could have done it, but I didn't paint the M at Faroe anyways.
I didn't either.
I never jumped in a fountain. That seemed like a good way to get hurt.
Same here.
I don't know. I think the well, now it's kind of terrifying, but the tiger walk and like tiger run through the columns. I mean, you can't do that now. Those poor freshmen have to be 6 feet apart. That's impossible. But I thought that was really cool. It was very symbolic. It's a run through the columns, and then on the way out, head back out towards the world. Let's see. Oh, there was always that the arch by the J school where if you talk underneath it, you'll fail your test because the dean can hear you in his office. For those of you that don't know, my dad is the dean. So every time I walk under, I say, "Hi, Dad." That's my favorite tradition.
I love that.
I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I think it's funny.
That's one that definitely is probably up there with me, because I remember like there's just so many times where like you're walking with another J student and you like get to that arch, and then it's like you're like, and then so we went out, and then it like there's a pause in it. So I think that's one I think is incredibly underrated. This last one though, I really want to get your thoughts on. What is the best piece of advice a Mizzou professor has given you?
The best piece of advice a Mizzou professor has given me. Man, there's so many pieces of good advice that professors have given me. Honestly, I was on the phone with one today. I was on the phone with Holly from Principles of StratCom, of course.
Love Holly.
And I was telling her about, like graduate school and sort of like what I'm doing. And, we were talking a little bit about graduate assistantships for next year and stuff like that. And she's the advisor for the NSAC team. So we got to know each other pretty well for the last 3 years, being in class, being on the same team and stuff like that. But she was like, you really need to, like, I know that you want to like do all the things that you're interested in, and you should do that. You should go and, this is a time that you're never going to have again. Go do all the things. Don't waste a class. You also need to look at it from a professional perspective. So what are things that you've already done? What are experiences that you've already had? What's something new that's going to add to your portfolio that plays off your strengths? So I'm a strategic guy by nature. I'm account strategy side all day long. She's not telling me. She was like, I'm not telling you to go get good at graphic design. Like, that's not going to serve you. I mean, sure, you need the basic graphic design skills. You need to know how to use Adobe Illustrator all day long. Sure. But go find something that plays off your strengths. So your account strategy, that's cool. Go learn how to do crisis communications. You know how to do public relations? Go, figure out how to write better. Go learn how to write copy. Go learn everything that's like related to your position, and then make the most of it. Because you've only got, I've got 22 credit hours to make the most of it. And then I got to go get an internship and do a project. And she had some thoughts on the internship versus thesis idea, but that's got to be the best piece of advice. And I think that's really something that she has like kind of hammered home before. And it's not something that I, I've not heard from my mentors, but that seems to be, some advice that I kind of live by. And that's the advice that I give all the younger kids is like, when they come to me, especially kids in Delta Chi that are, I say kids, they're like 19. But when younger J school students come to me and they're like, like, is this a good thing for me to do? I'm like, do you think it's a good thing for you to do? Because it's not about what I think is good for you. It's like, where are your skills? I'm like, let me like turn you and point you in the right direction, but you got to run. Like, you got to go get there. Find experiences that build off of one another. So don't just get stuck in the same loop, because you can learn about account strategy. Sure, you can take account strategy classes again, or you could take something that you have no experience in, and you could be a jack of all trades and a master of some.
Wow, that was, I got to give you kudos, snaps for that. I don't know if we can do applause with the microphone, but we're going to do it. That was an excellent, probably the best end to a podcast I think I've ever seen in the history of open mic. So, John, this was absolutely incredible.
Absolutely
great to just catch up. I feel like this would have been just something that happened regardless of whether it was a podcast. So I'm glad we could record it, get a little content out of it. But I'm grateful, man. I appreciate this so much, and I appreciate you so much, and just cannot say thank you enough for coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It was just like having a conversation like we normally would.
It was. Well, we're definitely going to have you on again.
Awesome.
Whenever, and it is inevitable, there will be some sort of breaking news in the marketing and media world. We're going to have you on again as our correspondent. Absolutely. Now. Maybe we'll talk a little Mizzou football too, if the football season is going on by that point.
What football? So, yeah, what football?
Oh man, that's a whole other advertising show that you could do based on ad dollars and actual money. That again, we could do a whole series on that kind of stuff. We could do a whole series on it, but
we could.
I like I said, I'm just grateful, and we can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Mike.
Anytime.